I think you will agree that in many ways we have become a more selfish, self-centered, and even meaner society. Yet all is not lost. There are also many who have been awakened and who have made a conscious effort to choose to be generous. As a person, I tended to be an optimistic person. And there is a recent evidence that my optimism is not unfounded. As our church family gets ready for the Big Give Canada event, I see the excitement to show acts of generosity to our neighborhood and community. Friends, generosity lies at the heart of the Christian doctrine, because it is embodied in the teachings of Christ, who, in the words of the Apostle Paul in Acts chapter 20, verse 35, said, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." You see, generosity doesn't come naturally to most of us, at least not the kind of generosity the Bible urges us to have. We must never forget that everything we have has been given to us by God. Therefore, we should be generous for the sake of others and for the glory of God. And that should be our only motivation. You see, we usually identify giving with money, but biblical giving isn't just giving money to a good cause, although that's how most of us have come to know the term generosity or giving. The biblical generosity comes from the word charity. And charity is an expression of love from the Latin caritas, which is a virtue through which we receive God's agape love, manifested deeper in the person of Jesus Christ, who gave all of himself to suffer and die on the cross of Calvary. The Apostle Paul describes this event very clearly in 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 9. "For you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sake he became poor, so that you by his poverty might become rich." Friends, his sacrifice was the ultimate expression of charity, of generosity. He gave not just his time or talents, not just his material possessions, but the most precious gift he could give, himself. Now, generally speaking, we think of generosity in financial terms, but it is so much more than that. Christians, following Jesus' example, are called to be good stewards of the gifts of God, given to them by which they should share with others, specifically their time, their talents, and their financial resources. You see, God's grace empowers generosity. On our own, we cannot do it. And the Apostle Paul used the example of the Macedonian churches as a testimony of how powerful the grace of God is to inspire generous giving. Grace had impacted the hearts of the Macedonian believers to give selflessly beyond their ability and beyond their means. We read in 2 Corinthians chapter 8 from verse 1 to verse 5. "We want you to know, brothers, about the grace of God that has been given among the churches of Macedonia. For in a severe test of affliction, their abundance of joy and their extreme poverty have overflowed in a wealth of generosity on their part. For they gave according to their means, as I can testify, and beyond their means, of their own accord, begging us earnestly for the favor of taking part in the relief of the saints. And this, not as we expected, but they gave themselves first to the Lord, and then, by the will of God, to us." Amazing words. Is grace that always helps us to do what we could not do on our own. You see, the Macedonian believers weren't giving because they were triggered by the promise of a special blessing coming back into them if they eventually will give abundantly, or they give while in deep poverty, not out of their abundance. They did it willingly because they wanted to give, not because they were forced to give. As a result, they experienced the joy of generosity by the grace of God. This was a sacrificial giving. And this type of giving confronts the mindset of the culture which we live in, that is full of greed, covetousness, debt, credit madness, and the accumulation of material possessions. Friends, too often we are held hostage by the pursuit of more. No matter how much we have, we always seem to need a little bit more stuff and more money. However, the Macedonian believers not only gave willingly, but also they begged for the opportunity to participate in the offering. What amazing disposition of heart they had. This brings me to a very important consideration. No one is too poor to give. Today, more than one research shows that in a world where 1 billion people live on less than $2 a day, most of our financial related stress occurs because of artificially manufactured need. We are bombarded by publicity, by acquiring or work hard for the last gadget or the last thing that we should have according to those who are offering those goods. You see, the way you break the hold of that stress is by acting against it with actions of giving. Friends, generosity changes these thoughts and helps us to remove this pursuit. It reveals to us how blessed we already have. It reminds us we already own more than what we need. It shows how much we have to give and how much good we can accomplish. It helps us to see the needs of those who will live alongside us and who may have less than what we have. And let's be frankly open here. It offers also a better alternative for our money than spending it only on ourselves. If you give in to the thought people are too poor to give, you are entertained an unbiblical thought. Giving is a spiritual grace which all believers may participate in, even the poor ones. You see, grace is the power of God's love working in a Christian, and it can work in the heart of the poor person as well as the rich person. There is no difference in God's eye. As I conclude, my hope and prayer are that others' faith will rise as we become increasingly generous people, and that more and more people can experience what Paul says to 2 Corinthians in chapter 9, verse 11, which says these beautiful words: "You will be enriched in every way to be generous in every way, which through us will produce thanksgiving to God." With these words, I wish you to be a generous person. I pray for that. And if you can, closer to our church, our community in the West Island of Montreal, different churches are participating into this big event of the Big Give Canada. And across Quebec, across Canada, in different cities, the Church of Jesus Christ is showing the heart of God through giving generously